The stars looked different from the observation deck of the horizon. Captain Frank Miller stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the unfamiliar constellation patterns. Humanity's first deep space vessel was 3 months into its journey, farther from Earth than any human had ever traveled. "Captain, we're picking up something unusual," called Zoe Adams from her communication station. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic display. Frank walked over, his steps measured despite his curiosity. "Define unusual, Lieutenant." "It's not random cosmic noise. There's a pattern." Zoe pushed her red hair behind her ears, eyes never leaving the screen. "It repeats exactly every 42 seconds. Chief Science Officer Alan Wells joined them, adjusting his glasses. "That's artificial. Has to be." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. After centuries of searching the stars, humanity had finally found evidence they weren't alone. "Record everything," Frank ordered, "and get me Dr. Patel." Dr. Maya Patel was the Horizon's xenolinguistics expert. She had spent 15 years developing translation algorithms for potential alien languages. Within hours, she confirmed what they all suspected. "It's a message," she said, dark eyes bright with excitement. "And it's directed at us." Within days, they had established basic communication with what called itself the Galactic Council. The Council revealed they had been watching Earth for centuries, waiting for humans to develop the technology to reach them. They invited the Horizon to a space station at the edge of the solar system. Navigation Officer Greg Wilson plotted the course. "We'll be there in 3 days, Captain." Frank nodded, trying to hide his unease. This was humanity's moment of truth, and the weight of that responsibility pressed down on him. His crew of 12 had been chosen from millions of applicants. Each wore a small neural implant at the base of their skull, the latest military technology designed to enhance focus and reaction time. "The Council is sending us technical specifications for docking," Zoe reported. "They're very advanced." Chief Engineer Lucy Chen studied the incoming data. "Their technology is centuries beyond ours." "Will we be able to dock safely?" Frank asked. Lucy nodded slowly. "Yes, but their power signatures are like nothing I've seen before." As the Horizon approached the massive station, the crew gazed in wonder at its impossible architecture. The structure seemed to bend space around itself, gleaming with materials unknown to human science. "We're being scanned," Security Officer Jake Martinez announced, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm. Energy signatures penetrating all decks. Frank felt a chill. "Is it harmful?" "Unknown, sir," Jake replied. "But our defensive systems are interpreting it as hostile." Before Frank could respond, the ship's automated defenses activated. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. "Weapons powering up," Jake shouted. "I can't override." On the view screen, sections of the alien station began to glow with energy. "They're arming weapons too," Lucy said, her voice tight with fear. Frank hit the communications panel. "Galactic Council, this is Captain Miller. Our defensive systems activated automatically. We mean no harm. Please respond." The reply came in a calm, emotionless voice. "Human vessel, power down all systems immediately, or we will be forced to neutralize the threat you present." "Something's happening," Zoe suddenly gasped, pressing her hand against her neural implant. "My head." One by one, the crew members began to experience the same sensation, a burning pressure at the base of their skulls where the neural implants were located. "The scan," Dr. Patel realized, her eyes widening. "It's interacting with our implants." Frank felt it too, a sudden clarity and expansion of awareness. Time seemed to slow down. He could see the trajectories of the Council's weapons before they fired, could calculate response scenarios with impossible speed. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered, his voice strangely calm despite the blood now trickling from his nose, "and prepare to return fire." The first shot from the Council station missed by millimeters as the Horizon moved with unnatural precision. Humanity's first contact was about to become humanity's first interstellar conflict. The Horizon spun through space, evading energy bursts from the Council station with impossible precision. On the bridge, Frank Miller watched his crew with growing concern. Blood trickled from Zoe's nose as her fingers flew across the communications panel. Greg's eyes glowed with an unnatural light as he guided the ship through maneuvers that should have torn it apart. "What's happening to us?" Lucy asked, wiping blood from her own face. Despite her fear, she worked with superhuman focus, rerouting power and strengthening shields faster than should be possible. Dr. Maya Patel scanned the crew with a medical device. "The neural implants are overclocking our brains. Our neural activity is off the charts." Another blast rocked the ship. Sparks flew from a nearby console. "Damage report," Frank called out. "Hull breach on Deck 3, Jake responded, his voice unnaturally calm. "But I've already sealed it and rerouted life support." Frank realized Jake couldn't have done that so quickly under normal circumstances. Whatever was happening to them was making them faster, smarter, but at a cost. The pain behind his eyes was getting worse. "The Council is broadcasting on all frequencies," Zoe reported. "But I'm picking up something else. Conversations between their ships. I can understand them somehow." "What are they saying?" Frank asked. Zoe's eyes widened. "They're terrified of us. They're using words like Berserker and threshold species. They've seen this before." On the main screen, 3 more Council ships appeared, surrounding the Horizon. "We can't fight them all," Frank said. "We might not have to," Lucy said, looking up from her station with blood-rimmed eyes. "I think I can understand their technology now. It's like the patterns just make sense." Greg nodded. "I can see gaps in their defense formation, blind spots they don't even realize they have." Frank felt it too, a strange new awareness flowing through his mind. He could visualize the entire battle in 3 dimensions, could somehow predict what the Council ships would do next. It was exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. "We need to end this without more bloodshed," he decided. "Maya, what's happening to us?" Dr. Patel worked frantically at her medical station. The implants were designed to enhance neural pathways, but the alien scan triggered something unexpected. "They're activating dormant parts of our brains, human potential that's normally locked away." "Can you shut them down?" Frank asked. She shook her head. "Not safely, but I'm detecting serious strain on our bodies. Our metabolism is running at 3 times normal rate. Hearts are racing. Brain temperatures elevated. We can't sustain this." Another blast hit the ship, this one breaking through their defenses. The lights flickered and alarms blared. "Life support is failing," Lucy reported. "We have maybe 20 minutes of oxygen." Frank made a decision. "Zoe, open a channel to the Council. Full broadcast." Despite the chaos, Zoe nodded and established the link. Frank spoke clearly, fighting through the pain in his head. "This is Captain Frank Miller of Earth Vessel Horizon. We did not come here for war. Your scan triggered our defense systems and did something to our neural implants. We are experiencing changes, but we still seek peaceful contact." There was silence, then a response came through. A deep, resonant voice tinged with what sounded like fear. "Human vessel, this is High Counselor Xarven. What you are experiencing confirms our worst fears. Your species carries the threshold gene. In our history, such species either destroy themselves or must be contained." "We don't understand," Frank replied, wiping blood from his face. "What is happening to us?" "You are becoming what your kind has always feared to become," the alien voice answered. "Unshackled from the limitations your evolution placed upon you. No organic mind was meant to perceive reality so clearly. It drives most species mad." Frank looked around at his crew, their bloodied faces, their glowing eyes, their impossible skills. "We're still in control," he said, though he wasn't entirely sure. "We want to understand." There was a long pause before the Council responded. "Then perhaps you are different. Stand down your weapons. We will attempt to help you. Frank gave the order to power down weapons. As the ship's systems quieted, he felt something strange, a presence in his mind, as if his consciousness was touching the thoughts of his crew. They felt it too. He could see it in their eyes. They had crossed some threshold, and there would be no going back. The Council medical bay hummed with strange energies as alien doctors moved around the crew of the Horizon. Frank Miller sat on an examination table while a tall, blue-skinned being waved devices over his neural implant. Fascinating, the alien doctor said in perfect English, thanks to their translation technology. Your implants were not designed for this, yet they act as perfect catalysts. Across the room, Dr. Maya Patel compared notes with Council scientists. Despite her exhaustion, her mind worked faster than ever before. You're saying humans are naturally predisposed to this condition. The lead Council scientist, Elar, nodded his elongated head. Many species carry dormant genes for accelerated neural function. Evolution typically suppresses them because the energy requirements are too high. Your bodies burn out. Frank watched as Zoe and Greg underwent similar examinations. Though the immediate crisis had passed, none of them had returned to normal. Their implants continued to pulse with activity, and they all reported strange new abilities: perfect recall, mathematical insights, and a growing awareness of each other's thoughts. How dangerous are we? Frank asked directly. Elar and the other scientists exchanged glances. In our history, we've encountered 17 species with similar potential. 12 destroyed themselves when their abilities emerged. 3 had to be contained. 2 achieved balance, but only after great suffering. Lucy Chen, who had been silent until now, looked up. The 2 who succeeded, what did they do differently? They accepted guidance, Elar said. You humans are unique in how quickly you've adapted. Most species experience complete psychosis during the transition. An alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. Council members rushed to communication panels. Frank felt a surge of awareness, danger approaching. Before anyone spoke, 3 Vraxian warships have entered the system, announced a Council security officer. They're demanding we surrender the human vessel. Frank exchanged glances with his crew. Through their new connection, he felt their shared question. Who are the Vraxians? High Counselor Sarvin entered the medical bay, his silver robes flowing behind him. The Vraxians are a militant species who believe themselves destined to rule. They've monitored our communications and learned of your condition. They want your implant technology. Why? Jake Martinez asked, his security training making him suspicious. To weaponize it, Sarvin said simply. They would create berserker soldiers without concern for the consequences. Frank felt a flash of anger, not just his own, but echoed by his entire crew. The emotion cascaded through their linked minds, amplifying with each person it touched. The medical equipment began to beep frantically. Their neural patterns are destabilizing, the Blue Doctor warned. Emotional surges accelerate the process. Frank tried to calm himself, but the anger felt justified, righteous. You need to let us help defend the station. Impossible, Tarvin said. You're still learning to control your abilities, and the Vraxians have never attacked a Council facility before. Our defenses. An explosion rocked the station, cutting him off. Emergency lights flashed. They've breached the outer docking ring, someone reported. Frank stood up, ripping monitoring devices from his arms. His crew did the same, moving with coordinated precision without exchanging a word. We caused this problem, Frank said. Let us help fix it. You don't understand what you're offering, Sarvin insisted. Combat will push you further into the berserker state. You may not come back from it. Lucy stepped forward, her eyes now glowing with an intense inner light. We're already changing. At least let it mean something. Another explosion shook the station. Through the large viewport, they could see 3 black angular ships firing on the Council's defenses. Give us access to your weapons systems. Greg said. I can see patterns in their attack formation that your gunners are missing. Kazarvin hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Very well. But remember what I said. Strong emotions will accelerate your condition. As the crew of the Horizon moved toward the station's defense center, Maya fell into step beside Frank. Their readings suggest we're approaching another threshold, she whispered. Whatever we're becoming, the next phase is happening faster than they expected. Frank nodded, feeling the change within himself, a burning sensation spreading from his implant throughout his body, rewriting him cell by cell. Let's hope we're among the species that find balance, he said, as they prepared to face an enemy they had never met, but had somehow drawn to them. Behind them, the council scientists exchanged worried glances. The humans were evolving before their eyes, and no one could predict what they would become. The defense center of the council station hummed with urgent activity. Council technicians worked frantically at their stations as the Vraxian ships continued their assault. Frank and his crew entered, drawing nervous glances from the aliens. These are the humans, Sarvin announced. They will assist us. The defense coordinator, a six-limbed being named Toril, looked skeptical. What can they possibly contribute? Our systems are beyond their comprehension. Greg walked directly to the navigation controls. Your defensive patterns are too predictable. The Vraxians are exploiting a mathematical sequence in your evasion protocols. Before Toril could object, Greg's fingers flew across the alien interface. Somehow, he understood it perfectly. The station suddenly shifted, moving in an unexpected pattern that caused the next Vraxian blast to miss completely. Impossible, Toril whispered. Zoe approached the communications array. They're using the subspace frequency to coordinate their attacks. I can disrupt it. Lucy examined the station's power distribution. You're wasting energy on non-critical systems. I can reroute it to strengthen your shields. The council members watched in amazement as the human crew integrated seamlessly with their technology. Frank felt his awareness expanding further, connecting not just with his crew but with the station itself. He could sense its systems, its weaknesses, its potential. They're preparing to board, Jake announced, somehow reading the Vraxian intentions through their ship movements. South docking port. I'll handle it, Frank decided. Maya grabbed his arm. Frank, your vitals are already critical. Combat will push you too far. Blood dripped from his nose again, but Frank felt no pain, only clarity. Someone has to face them directly. The rest of you are needed here. Zarvin stepped forward. I will send our security forces. They'll be slaughtered. Frank interrupted. I can see the Vraxians' tactics. They're experienced boarding parties. Without waiting for permission, Frank headed toward the south docking port. Through his enhanced senses, he could already feel the Vraxians cutting through the airlock. There were 12 of them, tall, armored figures with reptilian features. As Frank approached, a council security team joined him, handing him a weapon. It's a pulse disruptor, the lead guard explained. Non-lethal but effective. Frank nodded, though he sensed he wouldn't need it. The implant was changing him further, reshaping his muscles, sharpening his reflexes. He could feel energy coursing through his body like electricity. The airlock exploded inward. Vraxian soldiers poured through the breach, firing indiscriminately. Frank moved without thinking, faster than he'd ever moved before. He dodged blaster fire that should have been impossible to avoid, closing the distance to the first Vraxian in seconds. The alien was twice his size, encased in armor, but Frank saw its weaknesses instantly. The joint connections, the breathing apparatus, the visual sensors. One precise strike disabled the Vraxian's weapon. Another dropped it to its knees. The council security team stared in shock as Frank moved through the Vraxian boarding party like water, neutralizing each soldier with minimal force. His movements blurred with speed, guided by an awareness that seemed to predict every attack before it happened. Back in the defense center, the rest of the Horizon crew worked with similar impossible efficiency. Greg had taken complete control of the station's movement, evading all weapons fire, Lucy had reconfigured the shields to reflect energy back at the attackers. Zoe had hacked into the Vraxian communication network, feeding them false information. "They're retreating," Toril announced, disbelief in his voice. The main view screen showed two of the Vraxian ships turning away, but the third continued its approach on a direct collision course with the station. "They're going to ram us," Zoe realized. "They'd rather destroy the station than let us escape." Maya looked at the tactical display. "There's no time to move the station." Jake stepped forward, his eyes now glowing with intense blue light. "I can stop them." Before anyone could respond, Jake collapsed to his knees, blood streaming from his eyes and nose. But his mind reached out, somehow connecting with the oncoming Vraxian ship. The vessel suddenly veered off course, missing the station by meters. "What did you do?" Xarvan asked in awe. Jake looked up, his face pale from the effort. "I made them see something else. I projected an illusion." The defense center fell silent. Such abilities were beyond what even the Council had predicted. Frank returned, his uniform torn but otherwise unharmed despite facing 12 elite soldiers. Xarvan studied the humans with new concern. "No, Captain Miller, I'm afraid it's just beginning. What you've demonstrated today, it changes everything." 3 days after the Vraxian attack, the Council called an emergency session. Representatives from 27 species gathered in the Grand Chamber to discuss the humans. Frank and his crew sat in a special section, still under medical observation. Their conditions had stabilized, but not reversed. "The implants have permanently altered their neural pathways," Dr. Solara, the Council's chief medical officer, explained to the assembly. "Even if we removed the devices now, the changes would remain." Frank listened while monitoring his crew through their mental link. Jake had not fully recovered from his psychic effort against the Vraxian ship. He sat slumped in his chair, his mind a faint presence compared to the others. Lucy leaned toward Frank. "They're afraid of us," she whispered. She was right. Frank could feel the fear radiating from many of the council members, not just concern, but deep, instinctive terror. Xarvan stood at the central podium. "What we witnessed during the Vraxian attack confirms an ancient warning. Humans possess exceptional potential for neural evolution. In 3 days, they achieved abilities that took other threshold species years to develop." A representative from a crystalline species spoke up. "The records are clear. Berserker species cannot be allowed to expand into the galaxy unchecked. The risk is too great." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. "We helped defend your station," Frank said, rising to his feet. Blood still occasionally seeped from his nose, a reminder of the ongoing changes within him. "We're not your enemies." "Not intentionally," Xarvan acknowledged. "But consider what happened. An accident activated your latent abilities. Your neural implants, designed merely to enhance focus, have instead unleashed something evolutionary. How will your species handle this discovery?" Frank had been asking himself the same question. Earth would want this technology. Military applications would be developed. It was inevitable. "We need time to understand what's happening to us," Frank said. An avian council member fluttered its wings in agitation. "The Vraxians now know about humans. They will try to acquire this technology or capture specimens. The knowledge cannot be contained." Zoe suddenly stood up beside Frank. Her eyes glowed intensely as she addressed the council. "You're right to be concerned. I've been analyzing the data from our neural scans. The changes are accelerating, and I can't predict where they'll end." The chamber grew quieter. "There's more," Zoe continued. "During the battle, I intercepted Vraxian communications with someone on Earth. They've had contact with human military officials for months." This revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. "How is that possible?" Xarvan demanded. "Earth has only recently developed interstellar travel. The Vraxians found us first," Frank realized, pieces clicking into place. "Our neural implants weren't just military technology. They were based on something the Vraxians provided. Gray accessed the Council's database through his enhanced abilities, pulling information onto the main display screen. Look at these shipping records. Raw materials from Vraxian-controlled systems have been reaching Earth through intermediaries for at least 2 years. Maya's eyes widened. We were set up. The implants, our mission. We were experiments. The implications were staggering. Someone on Earth had collaborated with the Vraxians, using the Horizon crew as test subjects for neural enhancement technology. Then our real problem isn't here, Frank said grimly. It's back home. If the Vraxians are sharing technology with Earth military factions, more people could be implanted. And without proper understanding of the consequences, Lucy added, they don't know what it does to us. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some called for quarantine of the entire Sol system. Others suggested more drastic measures. Zarvan raised his hands for silence. Captain Miller, your crew has shown remarkable restraint given your condition. What do you propose? Frank looked at his people, scientists and explorers transformed into something new and potentially dangerous. Jake, still weak from pushing his abilities too far. All of them changed forever. We need to return to Earth immediately, Frank said. We have to warn them about what they're dealing with. And we need to find who's working with the Vraxians before more people are changed. And if your warning isn't heeded, Zarvan asked quietly. Frank felt the power surging through him, the constant battle to maintain control. Then the legends about Berserker species might come true after all. The Horizon approached Earth 2 weeks after leaving the Council station. The journey had changed the crew further. Their mental connection had deepened until they functioned almost as a single organism while maintaining their individual personalities. Home, Greg whispered as the blue planet appeared on the view screen. It looked so small now. Frank understood. Their perception had expanded beyond normal human limits. Earth seemed fragile, precious, and somehow distant despite being right before them. We're being hailed, Zoe reported. Multiple military channels. They're demanding identification and our reason for approaching with an alien vessel. The Council had insisted on sending an escort, a sleek diplomatic ship piloted by Zarvan himself, a gesture of both goodwill and caution. Open a channel, Frank ordered. His voice had acquired a subtle harmonic quality that made the bridge crew shiver. This is Captain Frank Miller of the Horizon. We've returned from first contact with the Galactic Council. Request immediate meeting with Earth Union leadership regarding a security threat. There was a long pause before the response came. Horizon, this is Earth Defense Command. Your mission wasn't scheduled to return for another 4 months. Stand by for approach instructions and quarantine protocols. Lucy touched Frank's arm. They're scanning us. Multiple frequencies, military grade. Like the scan that triggered our implants, Maya noted. Frank nodded. They're looking for changes in us. Because they expected them, Jake added. He had recovered somewhat during the journey, though he remained the weakest of the crew. This confirms our suspicion. Someone knew what might happen to us. The Horizon was directed to an orbital military station rather than the civilian spaceport. As they docked, Frank sensed unusual activity. Too many armed personnel, specialized equipment being prepared. They're planning to separate us, he told his crew through their mental link. Stay alert. When the airlock opened, they were met by soldiers in full hazmat suits led by General Richard Harris, head of Earth Defense Research Division. Captain Miller, Harris said through his suit's speaker, your crew will need to undergo immediate medical evaluation. Standard procedure after extended space travel. Frank stepped forward. Blood no longer seeped from his nose, but his eyes had the same subtle glow as his crew's. We know about the implants, General. We know they were based on Vraxian technology. Harris stiffened. I don't know what you're talking about. The neural enhancers were developed by our own scientists. With help, Frank countered. We've met the Vraxians. They attacked the Council station to get to us. Behind Harris, medical teams waited with specialized equipment. Frank could sense their intentions. They weren't there to help, but to study and contain. Your crew appears to be suffering from hallucinations, Harris said carefully. All the more reason for immediate medical attention. Zoe stepped forward. We intercepted communications between Vraxian Command and Earth. We know about Project Threshold. For a moment, Harris was speechless. Then his demeanor changed. What happened to you out there? Exactly what some people hoped would happen, Frank said. The implants activated abilities that humans normally can't access, but it's killing us slowly. Our bodies can't sustain this level of neural activity indefinitely. Show me, Harris demanded. Frank glanced at Lucy, who nodded. She raised her hand toward a nearby computer terminal. The screen flickered, then began displaying data at impossible speeds as Lucy accessed it with her mind alone. My God, Harris whispered. Who authorized the deal with the Vraxians? Frank asked. Harris removed his helmet, ignoring protests from his medical team. A consortium of military leaders from several countries. The Vraxians approached us 3 years ago, offering technology in exchange for genetic samples. They seemed particularly interested in human brain development. They weaponized us, Maya said bitterly. They knew about the threshold potential in humans and wanted to see it triggered. Harris looked genuinely troubled. The implants were only supposed to enhance cognitive function. Nobody predicted this. Nobody asked the right questions, Frank corrected him. The Council has records of species with similar potential. The Vraxians have been searching the galaxy for a species they could turn into living weapons. And they found us, Jake said quietly. Frank stepped closer to Harris. How many people have been implanted? The general hesitated before answering. 500 military personnel. The program was expanding to include civilian researchers next month. Frank felt cold dread through the mental link with his crew. 500 potential berserkers scattered throughout Earth's military. You need to remove every implant immediately, Frank insisted, before something triggers them like ours were triggered. And if we don't? Harris asked. Frank's eyes glowed brighter. Then Earth might become the home of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. 6 months passed since the Horizon's return. Earth changed forever once the truth about the implants became public. Despite General Harris' initial cooperation, not all implants were removed. Some military officials refused, seeing the potential weapon too valuable to abandon. Frank stood at the window of the new Earth Council embassy, watching ships come and go from the orbital station. His reflection showed how much he had changed. Silver streaks in his hair, eyes with a permanent subtle glow, face lined beyond his years. The council representatives have arrived, Lucy said, entering the room. Like all the original Horizon crew, she had been permanently altered. They had become something new, not quite human anymore, but not alien either. How many new cases today? Frank asked. 17, Lucy replied. All military personnel who kept their implants. A training exercise triggered their transition. Frank nodded grimly. Despite warnings, incidents continued as more implanted humans crossed the threshold. Each one faced the same choice the Horizon crew had faced: learn to control the new abilities or be consumed by them. The door opened again, and Sarvin entered with his diplomatic team. The Council had established permanent contact with Earth, partly to assist with the crisis, and partly to monitor it. Captain Miller. Sarvin greeted him formally, though they had become something like friends over the months. The Council has reviewed your proposal. Frank gestured for everyone to sit at the conference table. Maya, Greg, Jake, and Zoe joined them, completing the original crew. They still maintained their mental connection, though they had learned to moderate it. And, Frank asked, it is unprecedented, Sarvin admitted. But these are unprecedented times. The Council will support the creation of your Threshold Institute. Relief washed through the human side of the table. The Institute was their solution, a place where those affected by the implants could learn to control their abilities under the guidance of the Horizon crew. What about the Vraxians? Maya asked. Their attack on our station violated numerous treaties. They have been sanctioned severely, Tarvin explained. More importantly, we've exposed their attempts to create berserker soldiers throughout the galaxy. No species will trust them with genetic research again. Jake, who had eventually recovered but remained the most changed by his abilities, spoke up. And the humans who collaborated with them. Most have been identified and arrested, Greg answered. The Earth Union is treating it as treason. Frank placed his hands on the table. What matters now is moving forward. We've confirmed that 342 people still have active implants. Sooner or later, all of them will transition. And more beyond Earth, Zoe added. The Vraxians distributed the technology to several human colonies. Zaravin's expression became grave. The Council remains concerned. No threshold species has ever integrated so thoroughly into galactic society without a period of isolation. We don't have that luxury, Frank said firmly. The knowledge exists. The implanted humans exist. We can't put this back in a box. So we adapt, Lucy concluded. We teach control rather than suppression. Frank activated a holographic display showing the plans for the Threshold Institute, a massive orbital facility where transitioning humans could safely learn to manage their new abilities. The Berserker state is just the beginning, Frank explained. We've discovered it's actually a transitional phase. With proper guidance, those who survive it can achieve balance, using the enhanced abilities without being consumed by them. Like your crew has done, Tarvin observed. Frank nodded. We've learned to live with what we've become. Others can too. The meeting continued as they finalized details, but Frank's mind drifted to the future. Humanity stood at a crossroads. The implants had unlocked something that had always been dormant within the human brain, potential that evolution had deemed too dangerous to access. Now that door could never be closed again. Some would use these abilities for destruction, fulfilling the ancient warnings about berserker species. Others would find balance, using their gifts to advance human understanding beyond what had seemed possible. As the first graduates of the Threshold Institute took their places as ambassadors, scientists, and explorers, the galaxy watched with both hope and fear. The legends had been right. When humans went berserk, even gods trembled. But they had missed an important truth. After the Berserker storm came clarity. After the threshold came wisdom. And humanity, for better or worse, would never be the same.